Not yet. Yeah, I fixed it. Oh, yeah, yeah, I fixed the clock, yeah. I ran it up. So they wouldn't have any excuse.
Mr. Crawford was not here.
I mean, just currency exchange. No, I would have. I thought about it every time we went out.
So we might not be having a special recognition for him tonight. Because he is not
Well, I
here.
tell you what, you let me know after we. Okay.
That was all I saw. I don't even know what they were.
Should we get that figured out? All right, sounds good. For a gift?
Postponed.
Okay.
It's my fault. I should have actively checked on it, but he told me he had it in his calendar and he was fine. It's my fault. I should have double checked. So,
Thank you for being here, Wade. Thank you.
they actually should have put a date on the first page of this
Yeah.
instead of putting this. So, and it's interesting that I had asked Blythe to keep me updated, and
Where did you say they put a date on?
they should have put a date on the first page.
Oh, I thought you said they
Instead of
did.
No, never mind. I'm just talking to myself.
Not yet. Yeah, it is now. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We'll now call to order our December 16th council agenda. At this time, a couple of housekeeping notes. The double doors to our left will be locked from the outside. You may exit those doors, but if you wish to re-enter, you'll need to do so through the door at the rear. If you have a cell phone, if you would turn your cell phone on mute or vibrate, we would certainly appreciate it. All right, at this time, we're going to ask Councilman Groan if he would to lead us in the pledge and invocation.
Please render the proper salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Mr. Chair. As all of us are probably readily aware of, we're in the midst of the holiday season and Christmas. It's just a few days away. I think we should be mindful of the reason for the season. I know I can personally acknowledge that I have much to be grateful for. I also believe that the first and greatest gift of this season was the actual birth of Jesus Christ, who, as the scriptures say, came for our salvation, our hope and sustainer, and above all, to deliver God's message of peace and love. As Isaiah 9:6 proclaimed 800 years before Christ, "For to us a child is born, for us a Savior is given, and the government will be on his shoulders, and he will be called Wonderful Counselor, Mighty God, Everlasting Father, Prince of Peace." And for those of you who do not know, tonight begins the first day of Hanukkah. So I will close with this prayer. Blessed are you, Lord our God, sovereign of the universe, who performed miracles for our ancestors in those days at this time. Blessed are you, Lord our God, sovereign of the universe, who has kept us alive, sustained us, and enabled us to reach this season. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilman. This time I'll entertain a motion for the minute. We have a motion and a second. All in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. So moved. All right, under special presentations this afternoon, it's my understanding that Mr. Crawford is at home with an illness, so we will postpone this special recognition to another time. We do have another special recognition or presentation this afternoon, and we're going to ask Nick Wilkinson if he would to come and present that.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Council. It's my privilege to present this proclamation on behalf of the mayor for TPC Printing and Packaging. Proclamation. Whereas the City of Chattanooga takes great pleasure in paying recognition to Chattanooga-based companies that have a long history in the city and are making progressive strides in their industry, and whereas in April of 1924, Joseph A. Schmissrauter Sr. founded the Textile Printing Company. It was located at Central and Cemetery Avenues in Chattanooga, and whereas his company flourished and has grown to over 150 employees and $25 million in annual revenues in 90 years. And whereas the company is now recognized as TPC Printing and Packaging, and whereas TPC Printing and Packaging provides high-end, value-added packaging to global brands in the distilled spirits, cosmetic, and fragrance, over-the-counter pharmaceutical, and health and beauty industries. Whereas this company is worthy of support and cooperation as TPC Printing and Packaging celebrates its accomplishments that have started and grown in the Chattanooga area for the past 90 years. Now, therefore, I, Andy Burke, Mayor of the City of Chattanooga, do hereby proclaim recognition of TPC Printing and Packaging, in witness whereof I have hereunto set my hand and caused the seal of the City of Chattanooga to be affixed this date, 16th day of December, 2014. Signed, Andy Burke, Mayor. It's a great company. We're very lucky to have such wonderful industry in our community. I don't believe there's any members of the Schmissrauter family here tonight, but we do want to recognize this great investment they've made for almost a century.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Wilkinson. All right, we do now come to ordinances on final reading. Madam Clerk, if you would, 5A.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance, so as to rezone property located at 5106 Genesis Lane, more particularly described herein, from M1 Manufacturing Zone to C2 Convenience Commercial Zone.
Councilman Smith?
Move approval.
Second. Have a motion by Councilman Smith, a second by Councilman Anderson. Any questions on this item? All in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. Hearing none, the motion carries. These are all ordinances on final reading. 5B, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance, so as to rezone property located at 7407 Igo Gap Road, more particularly described herein, from R1 Residential Zone to C2 Convenience Commercial Zone, subject to certain conditions.
Councilman Grown?
Move to approve.
Second. We have a motion by Councilman Grown, a second by Councilman Smith. Any questions on this item? All in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. So moved. 5C, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance, so as to rezone part of properties located at 8062 and 8074 Old Lee Highway, more particularly described herein, from R1 Residential Zone and R2 Residential Zone to R3 Residential Zone.
Councilman Grown and Councilman Hakeem.
Move to approve.
Councilman Hakeem. Have a motion by Councilman Grown, a second by Councilman Hakeem. Any questions on this item? All in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. So moved. 5D, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code Part 2, Chapter 38, zoning ordinance, so as to lift conditions from ordinance number 12667 or previous case number 2012-131 on properties located at 6803, 6807, and 6811 McCutcheon Road, more particularly described herein, subject to certain conditions.
Councilwoman Burrs.
Mr. Chair, I move approval. What I don't know that we've gotten a copy of is there was an additional condition.
Mr. Bridger, would you like to address this?
Sure. Are you speaking relative to the improvement of the road from, yeah, I read the caption. It's in the caption, subject to certain conditions. As I read the caption, it was, give me 1 minute. It reads, there we go. Subject to improvement of McCutcheon Road to 22 feet curb to curb from its intersection with Hickory Valley Road to the shared property lines of 6811 and 6819 McCutcheon Road.
Okay, and so you said it was okay for the first reading to include that, and so this would be the final reading?
My understanding is that last week it was read as the first reading. That
correct.
included this condition, and so yes, it would be fine to read.
Okay, I've received no further comments, so I move approval. Thank you.
Have a motion by Councilwoman Burrs, a second by Councilman Anderson. Any questions? All those in favor, aye. Any opposed, no.
No.
We have one no. Now moving into ordinances on first reading, 6A, please, ma'am.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 14, Sections 1477, 1478, 1479, 1482, and 1484, relative to the Board of Electrical Examiners.
Councilman Anderson.
Move approval, Chairman.
We have a motion by Councilman Anderson, a second by Councilman Gilbert. Any questions on this item? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. So moved. 6B, please.
An ordinance to amend Chattanooga City Code, Part 2, Chapter 26, Article 1, Sections 2624 and 2691, relating to golf fees, and Article 4, Sections 2691, 2692, and 2693, relating to the Board of Directors of Brainerd Golf Course.
All right, I have a lot by Councilman Gilbert, then Councilwoman Burrs. Councilwoman Burrs? We have a motion and a second. Any questions? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Have one no. Motion carries. 6C, please, ma'am.
An ordinance closing and abandoning of a sanitary sewer easement located at 2409 Jenkins Road, subject to certain conditions.
Councilman Groan.
Move to approve.
Do I have a second? Motion by Councilman Groan, second by Councilman Anderson. Any questions on this item? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. So moved. Now we move to 6D, please.
An ordinance to amend Part 2, Chattanooga City Code, Chapter 35, relative to passenger vehicles for hire and transportation network companies.
Have a lot by Councilman Smith and Councilman Anderson.
Move approval, Chairman.
Councilman Anderson?
Proud to second, Chairman.
All right, we have a motion by Councilman Smith, a second by Councilman Anderson. Do we have any questions at this time? Councilman Freeman.
Mr. Chairman, first of all, I would like to commend Councilman Anderson and Councilman Smith for their hard work on this particular item. They've been very considerate. I think they've done a lot of detailed planning and a lot of detailed work on this. They've gotten together. They work very good together at putting together the final version of the ordinance that we are voting on now and everything. I think it has gone a long ways towards becoming fair for both sides and both parties. There are one or two areas that I think where it is not totally fair, but I think would be symbolically fair moving forward. And one of those is in the area of licensure. And I would want to move to amend this. The other was in the area of city sticker. And the third one is in the area of pollution control documentation that people who operate within the city limits. That city sticker is something that everybody who operates a vehicle on a regular basis in the city is required to have. And if these drivers are going to operate in the city, I think they should be required to have those. The license is a F status license. It's not a commercial license. It's an F status license, and at the appropriate time, the council could explain what that license is to us. But I move that we amend this particular ordinance to include that all drivers will be required to have the F license required, that all vehicles be required to display the city sticker, and that all vehicles who operate also be required to have the air pollution control inspection that we have. Thank you.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Do I have a second? I'll second. All right, we have a motion and a second for these three items for an amendment. Madam Clerk, let's have a roll call and start with Councilman Smith. Please hold on one second. Councilman Groen.
I do have a question. Could someone explain to me what an F status license is?
It's a license for passenger vehicle for hire vehicles. I looked at it just a second ago. It relates to Class D vehicles, which I wasn't able to confirm what that was, what a Class D vehicle is. I think the consideration for the F-Class endorsement is based on the fact that taxi drivers have to have either an F-Class endorsement or a driver's license approved by the PVH board, or the new board name. So that's, but it's a passenger vehicle for hire endorsement.
May I ask you one more question, if you please, Mr. Chair?
Go ahead, sir.
Aren't all vehicles in Chattanooga, except for just those that have been manufactured within the last 5 years, they're required to have a pollution control sticker? So would not, they're allowed, they must show approval before they can even renew their license. So wouldn't this inclusion in this be redundant?
Well, their current requirement is in the code, I mean, in the proposed ordinance, is for drivers to have a driver's license.
But they have to have a valid license tag that has been approved.
Councilman Groen, I think Mr. Hinton would like to respond to that question.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Well, that's accurate, but I also know that for the first article that's being addressed here related to the regulation of the taxi industry, that is an added provision. So I think that probably was done in the spirit of fairness. Okay. Yes.
Thank you very much.
Councilwoman Burrs.
I'm wondering if we should vote on these separately, please.
Well, the councilman offered them up as one amendment. Councilman, would you like to offer them individually? Or is your amendment for all three at one time? Okay, all right. The motion is to amend with these three with these three items.
So would the clerk repeat, excuse me, would you repeat them again, please?
Councilman Freeman, would you restate your motion, please?
My motion is that all drivers of passenger for hire vehicles have the F status license within the state of Tennessee, and all vehicles that they drive would have the city sticker shown, since they're driving on the city streets, as other vehicles which are required to have. All individuals are. And finally, the pollution control documentation, which is required of all vehicles within Hamilton County.
All right. Thank you, sir. We do have additional lights. Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I certainly agree with the city sticker aspect. That's something that I would actually, if we're going to have that on the books in the first place, I wish we'd actually enforce it as it is. But since it is already something that is required if you operate inside the city or even live inside the city, I don't see the point of adding redundant legislation at this point. And then as far as the other items, it seemed like we weren't quite sure what a Class D vehicle was, so I don't know that I want to support something that still has a little bit of I guess lack of clarity. And I believe it said you either had a Class F or approval by the PBH board, so I don't know that everybody has to have that anyways. That said, Chairman, that was the comments that I had to make. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Councilman Anderson?
Yes, sir, Chairman. I agree with much of what Councilman Freeman said, in particular the praise that he gave me tonight. I thought that was very accurate, and I thank you for that. But I will say that I'm a little concerned about an additional, what would certainly be a higher cost driver's license for drivers of TNCs. These are not generally people who are full-time employees. They are typically part-time with TNCs. These are mothers who drive for 5 hours a day while their children are in school. These are people who are perhaps they're artists or in some other field that's flexible and they take a few hours a day of a shift. These are students who drive for 2 or 3 hours between their classes to help make ends meet. So I'll be voting no on this.
Thank you, sir. Any further questions on the amendment? All right, if not, we will be voting on the amendment at this time that Councilman Freeman has offered up. If you would, Madam Clerk, let's start with a roll call. Start with Councilman Smith, please.
Smith? No. Mitchell?
No.
Hakeem?
Yes.
Grown?
No.
Gilbert? Freeman?
Yes.
Burrs? Anderson?
No.
Henderson?
No. That's 6 noes and 2 yes. So the motion to amend fails. Okay, we do still have at this time on the floor a motion to accept the ordinance. I do have 2 lights now. I guess I'm going to ask for questions. Councilman Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I would have to agree that the work done is excellent. I think we'd be missing an opportunity if we didn't go a little bit further. And what I'd like to offer is an amendment where application fees are equalized for hire or TNC, and by that we follow the TNC model, except if taxi companies have already been paying fees, they would move into the second year, which is $3,500 a year instead of the first fee being $5,000 a year. And we would eliminate all the different other fees that they have to pay per cab, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Also, I would like to take background checks and turn it over to the vehicle for hires, just like we're doing with the TNCs, with the audit capability. And the same thing with vehicle inspections. That's my offer for amendment.
Okay. Could you restate that? I got the application fees. Let's go with that. Let's go with the background checks. You're wanting.
I want the TNC model
For the
applied to the
taxi industry.
Absolutely. Same thing with background checks. Same thing with vehicle inspections. And I would like the application fees to be a one-time fee for both. Well, one time a year fee for both. And I'd like to match the TNC in the second year. In other words, $3,500 a year if they've already been paying some fees previously as a taxi.
Mr. Attorney, is that, are you clear on the amendment?
I believe we are.
Okay. We have a motion.
How much will the fee be for a certificate holder? 3,500?
For a certificate holder, yes.
Just a one-time fee?
5,000 for the first year, 3,500 for every year after.
No grandfather?
It's grandfathered so that the second year will be 3,500 going forward, right? Yeah.
Okay, we do have a motion on the floor to amend by Councilman Mitchells. Do I have a second? Councilwoman Burrs?
Once again, I think some of the ideas are good. I would like them presented separately.
I'd be glad to do that, Mr. Chairman. I'll take any of them.
Okay.
All right,
so hold on just a minute. The first motion for all 3 failed. Councilman Mitchell, would you like to start by amending with your first amendment recommendation?
Yes, the first amendment would be the equalization of the application fees.
Okay.
The second one
Whoa,
would
whoa, whoa.
go one at a time?
Let's take them one at a time.
Okay.
All right, so you make a motion to make application fees the same. Is that correct? All right, we have a motion to equalize the application fees. Do I have a second?
I'll second it for discussion. And
All right.
I have a question.
All right, we have a motion and a second. I think your light was on, so go ahead.
By your calculation, the one-time fee would be equal, you're saying, to all the, quote, nickel and diming we do during the year. Is that correct?
Yes.
Okay. And it may be that that is more helpful to the taxi industry. And the other thing I was unclear about, if I start a taxi company, you're talking about per company, right? Not per driver.
Yes.
That's what I thought. Okay. And so if I open a taxi company, the first year is $5,000, and then with no other fees, and then it's $3,500. Suppose I'm already in business, then what's my fee next year?
$3,500.
Okay.
I just want a fairness and equality of the application fees.
Okay, thank you.
Councilman Anderson,
I yield.
Councilman Hakeem.
I suppose a point of clarity. Do we have any history as to what those other fees come up to?
I think the city attorney can enlighten us on that. Mr. Attorney?
Sure. Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I'll ask Ken Frisch to come up for a second. But the amount that the taxi industry pays now for inspection purposes on an annual basis is, I think it's $10 per vehicle. They do have to pay a $50 renewal fee each year as well as the company. So, and there are about 5 or 6 taxi companies within that are regulated now by the Transportation Board. The range of the number of vehicles range from about 3 to 4 vehicles to about, a little less than 30 for one company. So, so basically what happens now, if you have a vehicle or a company that has 3 vehicles, they pay $10 each for each of those vehicles, so that's $30 plus a $50 renewal fee.
Yeah.
You still have the floor, is that
If I could,
yes,
say. I may be not interpreting what has been said, but it's like adding an additional penalty onto the taxi drivers, taxi companies, if we go with $3,500, when it doesn't sound like any taxi company comes up to that amount in a year. Mr. Attorney?
I asked Mr. Frisch to confirm, but I think that is the case. Is that?
That would be correct.
Yes.
Councilman Anderson.
Wade telepathically received my question and answered it before I could ask, so I yield.
Okay, are there any other questions on this First Amendment for equalizing the application fee? That's what we're voting on at this time, is an amendment for the application fee. Madam Clerk, if we would, let's start with Councilman Anderson.
Anderson?
No.
Burrs? No. Freeman? No. Gilbert? Grown?
No.
Hakeem?
No.
Mitchell?
Yes.
Smith? No. Henderson?
No. That's 7 noes, so that amendment fails. Now, Councilman Mitchell, I think you had a second amendment that you'd like to make on the background checks. Would you like to make that a motion now?
Yes, I would. On the background checks, I would like to move that the responsibility for the background checks get turned over to for hire vehicles, just like we're stating the TNCs will have that responsibility.
Okay, so the taxi companies would be responsible for their own.
With auditability,
with auditability. Okay. All right, we have a motion on the floor to amend the background checks to allow the taxi industry to do it themselves. Do I have a second? See no second on that. Councilman Mitchell, would you like to offer a third amendment?
Yes, I'd like to offer a third amendment, and maybe a fourth one also, by the way.
Okay.
Vehicle inspections are handled the ways that we have written for TNCs by both.
Okay. The motion is that the vehicle inspections will be handled the same as they are for the TNC, and then would reflect to the taxi industry as well. So do I have a motion on the floor to amend vehicle inspections? Do I have a second? I see no second, sir. One more amendment.
Yeah, I'd like to offer an amendment that the TNCs pay the same thing that the taxi industry is paying yearly.
Okay. We have a motion that the TNCs pay the same as the taxi industry on the application fees. Is that correct? Yes. All right. That's in the form of a motion. Do I have a second for that? Hear no second, so the motion fails for lack of a second.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and the council.
Yes, sir. We still do have on the floor the motion to approve the ordinance as written. We have a motion and a second. Do we have any other questions or amendments that'd like to be offered? If not, let's have a roll call vote on that. Let's start with Councilman Smith.
Smith,
Yes.
Mitchell,
Yes.
Hakeem,
No.
Grown,
Yes.
Gilbert, Freeman, Burrs, Anderson,
Yes.
Henderson.
Yes. I have 6 yeses, so the motion for the ordinance does carry, and it is approved. All right, now we move to resolutions. 7A.
A resolution authorizing the chief of the Chattanooga Fire Department to apply for and, if awarded, accept a 2014 Assistance to Firefighters Grant issued by the Federal Emergency Management Agency, FEMA, in the amount of $77,000 with the city's match in the amount of $7,700.
Councilwoman Burrs. We have a motion by Councilwoman Burrs, a second by Councilman Anderson. Any questions on this item? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. So moved. 7B, please.
A resolution authorizing the chief of the Chattanooga Fire Department to apply for and, if awarded, accept a Walmart Foundation grant through the local facility giving program in the amount of $1,000.
Have a lot by Councilwoman Burrs, then Councilman Gilbert. Councilman Gilbert? Second. Have a motion by Councilwoman Burrs, a second by Councilman Gilbert. Any questions on this item? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Hearing none, the motion carries. 7C, please.
A resolution accepting the donation of a painting from Brent Sanders with a value of $1,500 for the Chattanooga Fire Department.
Councilman Anderson?
Move approval, Chairman.
Do I have a second? Second. Motion by Councilman Anderson, a second by Councilman Gilbert. Any questions? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. So moved. 7D, please.
A resolution to amend resolution number 28073, authorizing and directing the clerk of the council to advertise for public hearing on January 13, 2015, the annexation of an area referred to as Cambridge Square, tax map parcel numbers 132AA001.04 and 132AA001.08 in Hamilton County, Tennessee, as described herein below and as shown on the attached map, contiguous to the city limits of Chattanooga.
Have a lot by Councilman Grown, then Councilman Gilbert.
Move to approve.
Councilman Freeman? Councilman Freeman. I missed.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Grown, a second by Councilman Freeman. I'll take questions. Councilman Hakeem. Disregard the light. Councilman Smith.
Yes, Mr. Chair, just a point of clarification on this item. Who is requesting this annexation?
Mr. Bridger, would you like to come up and speak on that?
Yes, the property owner from Cambridge Square is requesting this, the developer of that project is requesting to be annexed to the city of Chattanooga. Does that answer?
Thank you.
I also just, since this is a public hearing, just make sure also, make sure if anybody has any concerns before council takes action, just to make sure we do that. Is that correct, Attorney? I'm making sure.
Mr. Attorney?
Yes, actually, I think, well, if anyone has any comments now, but obviously, the public hearing itself is on January 13th.
Ah.
Yes. This
Okay.
is only to advertise.
It's
for it.
advertising, got it.
Yes,
Good.
yeah. Councilman, okay. All right, we have a motion on the floor to approve this resolution. Any further questions? All in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. So moved. 7E, please.
A resolution authorizing the administrator for the Department of Public Works to enter into an agreement with Volkirk, Inc. for professional services relative to contract number E13002-101, 2014 Walnut Street Bridge Inspection and Rehabilitation Project Phase 1 for an amount not to exceed $121,900.
Councilman Mitchell, then Councilman Anderson.
What a coincidence. Move approval.
Councilman Anderson?
Second.
We have a motion by Councilman Mitchell and a second by Councilman Anderson. Do we have any questions on this item? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Hearing none, motion carries. 7F, please.
A resolution to amend resolution number 27458 as adopted on April 2nd, 2013, relative to the engineering design agreement between Volkirk, Inc. and the Chattanooga Department of Transportation due to an increased project scope and additional services to be provided for a total project cost in the amount of $262,200.
Councilman Groen, then Councilman Mitchell.
I want to thank Administrator Bailey for all their efforts on this project and listening to the concerns of the public in 2 public meetings, and I move approval.
Councilman Smith. I can't read my lights this afternoon for some reason. We have a motion by Councilman Groen, a second by Councilman Smith. Any questions on this item? All those in favor, aye. Aye. Any opposed, no. Motion carries. All right, this afternoon, I'm not aware of any departmental reports, but we do have a couple of purchases that we need to approve.
Mr. Chairman, if we may, I will surprise you with one departmental report.
All right, sir.
Before we do
Just
purchases.
make it brief.
Well, it's Coach Jennings, so never mind. Yeah, I would like to invite Coach Lerone Jennings up to give a brief departmental report from Youth and Family Development.
Is this a benediction?
I do have the capacity to be brief.
Take advantage of it.
Mr. Chairman and members of the council, it gives me great pleasure to come to you and say that we have received a $2.1 million expansion grant for our Early Head Start program. And because of the leadership of Mayor Andy Burke and his campaigning and networking around the country for these competitive grants, and because of the leadership of this council that gives us approval to go after these competitive grants, so that people around the country will see and know that Chattanooga is really doing some neat things and has great leadership with great vision. So I just want to thank you all and thank Mayor Burke. Our children here in the city of Chattanooga will benefit greatly. 150 children through this expansion grant will be served, and we're excited, and our Head Start program is really moving forward, and Mayor Burke is really concerned about how we do better and through our early education programs. And this is evident that he has the vision and the support of you and even the White House seeing what's happening in Chattanooga as we compete for these type of grants. So this is a compliment to all of us here in the city of Chattanooga. So thank you very much.
Right. Councilman Mitchell.
Mr. Chairman, he actually answered my question, the 150 more.
Yes.
youth that we live. But I want to say something. And yes, I'm a believer in Mayor Burke and his vision and his leadership. But you know, it takes you too, Coach. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Coach. All right, Mr. Carmody.
Good evening. We have 8 purchases for your consideration this evening. First one is for Human Resources. It's a blanket contract renewal for the Employee Assistance Program to be awarded to Life Services EAP for an estimated annual expenditure of $33,135. Second is for Information Technology. It's a purchase of Premier One CSR software upgrade and implementation services. It's to be awarded to Motorola Solutions for a cost of $191,000. Third, we have purchase for the Police Department. It's a blanket contract increase for police and school patrol uniforms to be awarded to Apparel Sewn Right for an estimated annual expenditure of $70,000. Fourth is for Public Works. It's a blanket contract renewal for MSA parts, which is Mine Safety Appliances, and that's to be awarded to Daily Instrumentation and Controls for an estimated annual expenditure of $40,000. The fifth item is for Public Works. It's a new blanket contract for boiler and heat exchange repair services to be awarded to Alpha Boiler Systems, LLC, for an estimated annual expenditure of $50,000. Sixth, we have a purchase for Public Works. It's a new blanket contract for CCTV parts and repair services to be awarded to Q's Inc. for an estimated annual expenditure of $50,000. Seventh, we have a purchase for Public Works. It's a blanket contract renewal for Moino Pump Parts to be awarded to Carl Eric Johnson Inc. for an estimated annual expenditure of $75,000. And last, for Public Works, purchase of a slope mower to be awarded to CMI Equipment Sales. The cost is $142,949.
Thank you, sir. What's the pleasure of the council?
Move to approve.
We have a motion by Councilwoman Burrs, a second by Councilman Grown. Any questions? Councilman Hakeem.
Yes, either you or Mr. Norris. Is this a big mower or a little mower?
That's a big mower. Yeah.
That's a big one.
Okay.
It's real big.
All right, any other questions concerning our purchases this afternoon? If not, all those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed, no. Thank you, sir. Motion carries. All right, moving to other business. Do we have any other business that needs to come before the council this afternoon? All right, committee reports. Councilman Anderson.
Yes, sir, Chairman. We had an ECD committee meeting scheduled for today regarding the administration's plan for donation bins in the city. There was some new information that came forward about the cost of implementation. They wanted to look at the numbers a little more closely, so that's going to be rescheduled for the first Tuesday in January that we meet.
All right, thank you, sir. Councilwoman Burrs. Councilman Freeman.
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. I really don't have a report tonight, but I plan to get you one real soon.
I appreciate that, sir. Councilman Gilbert. Councilman Grown.
No report, Mr. Chair.
Councilman Hakeem.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I believe I'm correct, John, the second Tuesday in January? First Tuesday in January, Planning and Zoning Committee meeting.
All right, thank you, sir. Councilman Mitchell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I am planning a Budget and Finance Committee sometime in January, but I want to get with Mr. Goldberg and set a time for that. So I'll get back to you on that. But the discussion will be about the existing capital budget.
All right, great. Thank you, sir. Councilman Smith.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Earlier today, we did have our Public Works and Transportation Committee meeting. We covered items on tonight's agenda, and we also went over again the passenger vehicles for hire and transportation network companies ordinance, that of which was passed tonight. Thank you to all of the work done by this council, by the city attorney's office. It's been a process, and we've learned an awful lot in the amount of time, and it is a piece of legislation that had a lot of input and a lot of research and was done very quickly due to the amount of time and effort put into it by the city attorney's office. And I just want to make sure that Although they don't often get mentioned, that they do get a tremendous amount of credit for keeping this together, staying on top of it, and making sure that we had a complete ordinance in front of us before the end of the year. And I'm very proud to have been one of the co-sponsors to get that passed this evening. Thank you, sir.
Thank you. All right, at this time, we will recognize persons in our audience that would like to address the council on non-agenda items. Do we have anyone here this afternoon that would like to address the council? Motion to adjourn. Have a motion to adjourn. Do I have a second? Second. We're adjourned.
Always fun. I appreciate it. That'd be a good time. Excellent. Does anybody